Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. Super, super excited to be joining you for another VIP variety showcase. I'm Jordan Gill, founder of System Save Me and head honcho slash head coach at Done in a Day. And I love getting to share the spotlight with some of our amazing clients who are out there in the field doing the thing, offering VIP days in their own expertise and specialties. And so today we are talking about launch strategy, which thank goodness, because I would say I do launches. However, launch strategy is something that is so underutilized. You would think that it's more common. And so thank goodness for our next guest. You would think it's more common because of how many launches people are doing, but most people are out there doing it in a hot mess express way. So if you are that person, be excited for our guest today. And if you are intrigued by launches and want to hear again from an expert, then get excited too. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Miss Jacki Hayes. Hello.
Hello. I'm so
So
excited to be here today.
yes. And thank goodness for the work that you do because again, while I do launches, I do not, I think, let me say this. I feel as though launches get a bad rep, number one. So I'm excited to kind of peel back those layers with you. And number two, I think that launches can be more simple and streamlined, hence where you come in, right? So there's some beliefs that kind of have to be shattered around launches before people can really open up to the possibility of what a launch can really do for your business. So before we get into that, I'm going to let you go ahead and tell the good people of the internet a little bit about you and your business before we dive in.
So as Jordan said, I am Jacki Hayes. I'm a certified online business manager and a launch strategist. I work with coaches who are transitioning or have transitioned from the one-on-one model to group coaching programs. And I help them create a hustle-free launch strategy for those group programs.
Amen to hustle free. That is definitely not how I get down either. So I love that our missions are aligned in a very similar way. So with that being said, I would love for you to start before VIP day. So talk to us about kind of what your business looked like, who you were serving, and again, just kind of like what your world looked like.
Yeah, so I've had a quick evolution, I guess you could say, to my business. Last July, I started as a VA, subcontracted through an agency, and did a lot of work with them. But by October, I noticed that I was doing a lot more strategy and planning and stumbled across this whole world of online business management and jumped quickly into the certification program for that. And really just kind of leaned into strategy as much as I could with my VA clients. Took myself out on my own in December with a retainer client who had a group program. As a VA, I worked with lots of different people, but I kept getting more and more coaches. And so I kept working with more and more coaches and found those were the people that I wanted to work with the most. And then about March, I would say, I started doing launch management as a package instead of a retainer. And what I discovered very quickly with my very first launch management package that I sold was that I was trying to do all the retainer things into a package, which I think is something you talk about often. And it was fun. I loved the client I was working with, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. I was looking for more flexibility, more time away from my desk, more strategy, and not as much of the task implementation. And I've been following you for a long time, and I was like, this is the time to go ahead and jump on this. And it was funny because in the sales call, who I was speaking to was like, well, why don't you just take your launch management and create a couple of launch VIP days? And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I can see exactly how to do that. And I have 2 sales calls next week for a launch management, and I'm just going to pitch them on the VIP day. And I booked them. So I was actually booked with VIP days before I actually got into the program, which was on May 1st. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. Yeah. It's one thing when, people are like, oh, I have to take, my whole expertise and put it into one VIP day. And that may not be the case. You can make multiple VIP days and make that work for you. So I'm glad that you are taking that advice and creating multiple VIP days and whatnot. So talk to me about what didn't feel right about the management. So you said you didn't want to be chained to your desk. Were there what was like the pivot point? Was there something that happened with a client? Was there something that happened in your life? Something that happened that then was like, okay, I do need to take VIP days seriously, or I need to find something else, some other way to work with people. Was there like a pivot point?
I think it was a lot of things, actually. It
Mm-hmm.
was one of the things was I was helping to schedule out emails and upload the content. And rather than it being done and ready for me, it was kind of piecemealed over, and which was fine. I mean, there was nothing set up in the expectations with the client that I needed it all up front. But it was like, okay, so now I was constantly checking ClickUp to see if things were waiting for me, which doesn't, the amount of work you do is still the same amount of time, but it's the constantly checking to see, do I need to set aside time on Wednesday to do this? No, it's not going to be here till Friday. And that's where that sitting at your desk and that flexibility was like, waiting for something to show up can make it hard, as opposed to a VIP day where you're like, no, it needs to be here. We'll get it done this day. It's done. I can walk away. I can put it on my schedule. I can plan around it. I live in Iowa in the middle of nowhere on 11 acres. We have a homestead. And so there's a lot of time that I need to spend outside with the animals in the garden. And it's hard to do that when I'm sitting at a desk as much as I was when I was with retainer clients and with packages. So.
Jackie, you still here?
I'm still here.
All right, cool.
I don't know if she got any of that.
I know. I think we do, but
Okay.
we have a thunderstorm today, so that's just. I'm hoping that we'll see, but we'll just carry on. So we got everything, but then we had a little pause, I think. But so basically, you were saying that the waiting, the delays, all of that stuff, it does cause it causes some uh, it causes you to not be able to move when you're feeling ready, right? Like there's nothing worse than like you having the energy or the excitement and then someone being like, halt, like just wait because I'm doing something else, right? Those delays definitely were something that I was like, I do not want to deal with this. That's for sure.
I'm a schedule blocker, and so then it's like I'm primed and ready. I've set aside this time for that
Yeah.
work, and it's not there, and then I sit there with like, now I don't know what to do with myself today. So.
Yeah, I totally get that. So, so then when you made the transition to VIP days, was there anything about VIP days that felt um, like a belief or maybe something that stood in your way around like maybe the pricing of it? Or did you feel like you needed more experience to do a VIP day? Was there anything that initially held you back on offering VIP days or not necessarily?
Once I made the decision, I was all in. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been things. Coach Gabby has had to help me a lot with pricing. And I know that she would say that I'm still not pricing it high enough. So that
I
one
know that
was
as
a
well.
big one. It took a long time for me to get over the idea that I'm pricing based on value as opposed to my
Yes.
time. Being a child of a welder who, the only way you made more money was to work, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And
Mm,
so to be like, oh, wait a minute, the amount that I used to get paid when I worked at a university, I can get in one day, because that's the value of it, as opposed to, the amount of hours that I've put in. That has been a really big one for me. So.
yeah, yeah. It's a tricky one to kind of cut through. Even myself just thinking through where I was too, like that's I mean, it's the employee kind of mentality and what we're kind of told, right? Is this is you are compensated based on how long you work. And so then we get into this notion of like, well, if I'm more efficient, then that actually decreases my opportunity to get paid. And so then you're like, it's very confusing and backwards once you kind of get out, you kind of look above and are like, this is strange, and whatnot. Because I definitely am an efficient person. And so that always frustrated me about hourly work was like, I feel like I should be getting paid more because I can get done faster. That's how it should work. So thus VIP days, right? So then when you came into the program, so obviously on the sales call, you spoke to someone around being able to do multiple VIP days. How did you decide on the first VIP day that you wanted to create coming into the program?
So I've actually used my launch strategy VIP day as kind of a way to filter, I guess you could say, like, the work that I did on that day, if I can continue to help you and we worked great and we had great chemistry, then I can offer more, another VIP day or some other kind of service. And so I stepped back and was like, what is the first step in a launch process? And what do I really love to do? And what am I really good at? And that was the strategy side of things. And
Mm,
so it was just really simple to be like, okay, my very first one's going to be this launch strategy day. And if that works well, then I can offer a VIP day for a CRM setup or whatever it happens to be, other tasks. So that's where I came in. So
yeah, nice. Did you have any nervousness around just doing strategy versus implementation at all? Or you felt good?
yes, I did, because I work with coaches, and so they talk a lot about selling the intangibles.
Yes.
And strategy it's not quite as intangible, but it can feel that way, as opposed to you're going to walk away with your entire, Dubsado setup.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a concern for mine, is to be able to find a way to communicate how important it was to have strategy behind your launch and how
Yep.
it can improve the launch experience for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I think that for some reason the intangible, can trip us up and think that, again, because we can't like physically see it or it's not a physical representation, that somehow that is less transformation or less value, when that's not the case at all. So I don't really fall into a camp of one being more than the other per se, because I see the value in both, right? And I want to encourage strategists. So I love that you're sharing this. I want to encourage strategists who may be listening that you can do just strategy. Like, you do not have to, like, if that's truly your zone and what you enjoy and where you're excellent, don't do the management. Like, there are people who love the management and will do the management and, focus on that in that area. So I love that you've stepped up and said, no, this is where I'm good, and this is where I'm great. And I'm just going to focus there, because I think too that, if you want to do both, you can, but also not necessary, and whatnot. So talk us through your VIP day. How is it structured? Walk us through a kind of agenda, day in the life. Okay, if someone is signing up for your VIP day, what's the experience that they're getting from, okay, pre-work to then what's happening on the day of, and then kind of deliverables?
Okay. So the first thing is they receive a pre-work workbook in Google Docs, and it has all the questions for them to fill out. It is literally a workbook. And so then they can answer right there and then share the document with me when they're done, so that I can just read their answers as they go through. I focus the start of our VIP day with a review of their core values. That's where we start, because I want to make sure that whatever launch strategy we come up with actually aligns with their core values. So if they've never done their core value work, that pre-work has helped them do that. It has also helped them create their operating guidelines, which for me, when I think of operating guidelines, is how you take your core values and use them every day in your business. So usually there's like 5 to 10 ways I'm going to do business. And those are the operating guidelines based on those core values. So we do a review of that, which has the pre-work has helped them create those. Afterwards, we go through their launch goals, but also what I call their 3-year audacious goals. Like, where do they want to be in 3 years? Because I don't want to help them set up a bunch of stuff or give them tips and pointers if it's not going to help them to get to 3 years. There's learning curves to everything. Don't learn something if you're only going to use it for 3 months. After that, we will go into clarifying who their ideal audience is, which is one that really trips up a lot of people, because they're like, I don't need to know how old they are. I don't need to know where they're from. And so that one takes up a lot of our time of who is this program really for, and how are you going to communicate to them, and where are you going to find them? Just because you like being on LinkedIn doesn't necessarily mean that your ideal client is on LinkedIn. And sometimes it takes a little while. we spend some time also visualizing what their ideal launch would look like and what it would take for that ideal launch to happen. And when I say what we want it to look like, it really is what we want it to feel like. So I asked them to come up with 3 words. Like, if you could describe your ideal launch, what 3 feelings do you want it to be? And then how are we going to reach that? We do a launch timeline, and that works backwards from their kickoff call to working backwards. And what I have found most is that people are like, oh, I'm going to launch this in like 6 weeks. We're going to have our kickoff call in 6 weeks. And I've kind of helped them understand that that's not going to be hustle free. It's the farthest thing from hustle free as you're going to find. I mean, if you have a small group that's maybe like a 3-week thing, then maybe that'll work. But most everybody's looking at a 6-week, 8-week, even a 6-month program. So you're going to need some more time with that. And we finish off with doing some client onboarding process brainstorming, like what do they want that to look like? And then what tools is that going to require? As well as the group program. What is that going to require as far as tech and tools? And who do you need on your team for that to happen as well? And then they receive a launch blueprint from me after the call, usually a couple of days later, that lists out everything that we have done in that call, all the plans we came up with, as well as a step-by-step launch strategy for them. And that's in a Google Sheet so that they can just copy that and replicate that over and over again with every future launch that they have.
Which is so key. I think so many people think you have to start from scratch every launch. And so I love that you're building in the repurposability, if that's a word, into the initial launch strategy, which I think is so important for people to realize. Like, we have reused all sorts of stuff over here because we are not trying to do all that work every time. And also what I love too, the 3 feelings thing I really liked. That stood out to me because I think too, people get wrapped up in the data, which is important, and you need that to make decisions. And there should be feelings also being evoked. And so don't overlook that when you're thinking about your launch and what that is meant to be. Do you actually specialize in any specific types of launches, like webinars, challenges, virtual conferences, etc.? Like, do you have a specialty? Or not really?
No, I don't. I really just kind of go with what it is that my clients like to do. We kind of come up with a promotional timeline and a strategy as far as, where they're going to best find their clients. I do think that coaches do well to have webinars or virtual workshops, especially ones that highlight their coaching skills. There's really no better way to sell your coaching than to actually coach. And so I do encourage coaches to do that. And so that's what most of my clients have done. Part of what I do is then help them figure out other people that they might want to bring on to help them. So copywriters or course creators or things along those lines. And so if they decide that they want to do a webinar and I don't feel like it's something that I could help them with, then I have, thanks to Done in a Day, a long list of referrals that I can send them to and help them continue on with that next process.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because it's, knowing who is next in line for you and for their client journey is really, really helpful. So I love that you have lots of referral partners, I'm sure, from the program and beyond, which is awesome. So with that then, going to sales and marketing, how do you get your clients? Are you doing guest podcasting? Are you doing Instagram? Like, what's kind of been a way that you've found the majority of your clients or gotten connected with your clients?
So far, 100% of my clients have all been referral based. Awesome. So I have not had to do a whole lot of marketing, and I'm now in that stage where I'm ready to scale up and offer more. And so I am having to do some more outreach. And so what I am doing is Instagram. I just transitioned to the 9 grid and I'm focusing on Reels. We'll see how that goes. I'm looking at doing podcast guests. I have a podcast of my own, and so that's another way for me to get my message out there. So,
yeah, I love that. Ooh, jumping into the Rails game, man. It is. I feel like it's taken me a full year to fully embrace them. I hope it takes you less time.
I hope so too.
But they definitely are fun, and they have definitely expanded our engagement and our audience. So that is obviously that's the point, and whatnot. But that's really great. And I think too, coaches obviously are on Instagram, and they're looking for that expertise and that knowledge as far as support with launches, because they want to do the teaching, they want to do the coaching, they want to do that stuff. They don't want to worry about, is this integrated with this? I got to write this email, unless they love to write emails, like whatever all that stuff is. They want someone to just give them the plan, know who else they need to hire, and like move through it. Right. I feel like a lot of coaches tend to do a very fly by night launch strategies, I guess is what you would call them, where they're just gonna lean into it and like it'll happen. And then what happens, that again, as Jackie would say, it's not hustle free, and they're like having to stay up late at night for an email that's supposed to go out tomorrow, writing that email tonight, because for all for the sake of inspiration and like making sure that it's coming from an inspired place. And I would love to kind of hear how you've overcome that belief potentially, from some of the coaches that you've worked with. But you don't have to wait for your launch to be inspired. There's other ways to get inspired. I get inspired by doing these VIP variety showcases. Like I get so many ideas and whatnot from a content perspective, from all sorts of things, to then go out there and make reels or write emails and things like that then I can use for launches or beyond. So have you found that the people coming to you tend to be those kind of like last minute Lisas, where they're, just kind of like doing it on a as needed basis by like pure procrastination? And then how are you able to show them or explain to them that a launch strategy is really going to help them impact more people, which is obviously what they want?
Well, yes, most everybody that has come to me has definitely been an inspiration hits type of, that's how I'll do it. One of my clients literally said it was a fire sale. My last launch was a fire sale. I just threw it all out there. And one of my points to that is, but do you know what worked? Because you've just made a whole bunch more work for yourself if you haven't figured out what actually worked. Now you're doing it all over again, recreating it all over again, and only maybe half of it actually worked for your launch. And maybe the other half didn't, nobody saw it, or nobody clicked over to your profile on Instagram, which means they didn't click onto your website. Right. So if you're just throwing it out there and you're not keeping track and you're not creating a plan, you're just making more work for yourself. Also, just because we come up with a launch strategy doesn't mean you can't still throw in reels when you get inspired. We may have 3 days planned out, but if something inspires you, just go ahead and do it.
Oh, I'm back. It's definitely my connection. Sorry about that. So you were just talking about they didn't know what was working, and then just because, and then you kind of
okay. So let's see. So they don't know what's working, so they're making more work for themselves. And just because we have a plan doesn't mean that you can't also interject those ones that are moments of inspiration. We may have decided that you're going to post 2 reels this morning, and then you get inspired to say something on Instagram again. There's no reason why you can't get on Instagram again later in the day. Go ahead and do it. So what I like to say is life happens. And if you don't have things pre-planned, your child gets sick, you get COVID.
Oh my gosh.
Something happens. And guess what? You don't have to worry. Your launch is still happening. It's pre-planned. It's pre-scheduled. You don't have to worry about inspiration hitting you. You don't have to worry about staying up late and scheduling something. It's already there. The essentials are ready and they're set to go. And that's what we focus on, is the essentials. Everything else beyond that is a bonus.
That is so true. Like, people forget about the fact that like having it all planned out actually allows you to have more time for the inspirational hits. Like, and most likely you'll have more of them because you have the space, right? The mental space to do that. And there definitely have been moments of difficulty, whether it's a family member being sick or whatever the case is that happens during a launch, right? Like, life doesn't just all of a sudden like pause and everything is fine for the 3-4 weeks that you're launching. Like that doesn't happen. So, being able to pivot and be available for those live things during a launch is super important too. So I love those reminders that you gave. And I want to wrap up with our last question around what is your biggest tip or lesson or suggestion that you have for somebody who is thinking about VIP days, maybe wanting to dip their toe in, and what advice would you give them?
I would say the very first thing is to really work on your mindset of the pricing, that it's about the value that you're bringing. So get really, really clear on what it is that you are providing, not just like the handover deliverables, but the value that you're providing to your clients. What are they walking away with? What transformation are they going to experience? And when you can stop and think about how much money you might actually help them make by doing your VIP day, it really helps you be like, oh, wait a minute. For instance, for me, they sell one person in their group, they've paid for their VIP day. That's all it takes. So that really helped me rethink the pricing on my offer. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad. Because, I think that, we can get stuck, especially sometimes in like hourly. Sometimes it's stuck on, well, I really enjoy this. So I don't think it needs to be super expensive. I've heard that even around pricing of just like, but I enjoy it. So like, it's almost like a like a I don't know, a hindrance. If you enjoy your work, you shouldn't be paid a ton for it, which is not the case. Do not believe in that. And so the pricing definitely can be somewhere that trips people up for sure. And I think too, when you really lay out and see the transformation and results that you get people, you're not going to think those same thoughts that you were thinking before you did that. And so even the small action of like literally writing out all the tasks and all of the things you're helping people with, you're going to be like, I'm actually doing a lot and I'm pretty great. So let me price that a little bit higher for sure, or a lot a bit higher even in some circumstances. So I would love for you to share how people can get connected with you and chat or learn more and be in your world.
So you can probably find me on Instagram the most, and I am Jacki Hayes. So it's JACKIHAYES_OBM. That's the socials that I am on the most. And then my website is JackiHayes.me.
Yay, easy enough. We'll have all the links in the comment thread here today. So you can just easily click on over and say hello and what takeaways that you had from today. But Jacki, thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience and all about your VIP day. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll be back next Tuesday with another VIP Day showcase. So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube or follow us on Facebook and come and enjoy another interview with us. All right, y'all have a good rest of your day.